Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Angela Anderson Show, where we are helping moms live their dream while taking care of their families. I'm so excited that you're here with me today. I'm your host, Angela Anderson. So, a little bit of why I created this show. This show is a result of a summit that I hosted the summer of 2022. It was called Get Your Life on Track, Walk in Your Purpose. And the focus was on mothers who wanted to identify their purpose and live it fully while taking care of their family. For 14 days, I interviewed top speakers and influencers, about 20 of them, and they shared information and great tips that assisted mothers in finding their purpose, pursuing their goals, and living their dream, all while taking care of their family. So there's such a popular demand for this type of content. So I created this talk show where I will continue to empower moms to see their value, understand their importance, and reclaim their identity. So here we are with the Angela Anderson Show. So I have a question for you. Question is very simple. Do you have a tendency to overthink? Do you have a tendency to overthink? Think about that, and we're going to talk about it when we come back from this commercial.
Someone once said that life is a journey. Every now and then I convince myself that I have it all figured out. All of a sudden, life throws me a curveball and I find myself between a rock and a hard place. Through it all, the pervading theme is that God is constantly pursuing me. Just when I thought I knew God, He reveals Himself to me in a different way. I now realize that His purpose is to achieve a deeper level of intimacy with me, no matter what it takes. His main concern is the end result, which is to live with Him in eternity. He loves me that much, and the same holds true for you.
Welcome back. That is a devotional book that I wrote just when I thought I knew God. 40-day devotional journal available to you now on Amazon and also in Kindle format. So before we went to the commercial, I asked you a question. And I asked you, do you have the tendency to overthink? Now, if you're still thinking about that question, I think you've answered it for me, because I think the answer might be yes if you're still thinking about that question. So what do I mean by overthinking? So overthinking is when you have this thought and you are rehearsing the thought in your head over and over again. You are going over the ideas repeatedly. You are mulling it over in your brain, in your mind, constantly. That is overthinking. And sometimes when we're overthinking, we start to think about other things that are irrelevant to the original thought that we were thinking about. That is overthinking. Okay, so let me give you an example. And this is a show for moms. I know that we have a lot of viewers out there. I have some male viewers out there. How you doing, guys? I have just viewers who may not be moms, because some of this content is for everybody. But for the purpose of this right here, I'm going to use an example where I know moms can identify with. Okay, so let's just say you have a school-aged child, right? And the question is, should I enroll my child in this after school program? Hmm. So, really, it's a yes or no question, but you want to think about it a little bit, right? There's nothing wrong with thinking about it. But then you start going down this road. Let's see, if I enroll them in the after school program, then let's see, I don't know how late they're going to get home. So, I don't know, what if they have homework? And, but what if they don't like the program? And then am I going to have to take them out of the program right when they're in the middle of the program? But they really should go to the program because social skills, right? And they'll have friends that are there. Oh, but what if they don't want to be with the people that are there and they don't have any friends that are there? What if they're going to feed them anything? This after school program, they have snacks. Oh, but what if it's snacks that they don't like? Well, I could always pack snacks. But then again, what if they're too full when they come home for dinner? Okay, the question is, should I enroll my child in this after school program? Yes or no? And you see what I did there? It's like I went through all of these things, and all of a sudden I'm like going off on tangents. Now we're talking about food. Now we're thinking about things where, um, things that might not even be relevant to the actual topic. Another example, something all of us can identify with. Ever met a person who had the toughest time ordering something from a menu? Just making a decision on what you want to eat. And so you're sitting there, with your group of friends or one on one, and it comes around to the person, um, and they're sitting there for a little bit. Yes, they said yes, they're ready to order. They said they were ready, and then they're still looking, and they're still looking, flipping pages even, and just looking. Oh, okay, okay, I'll have um, the chicken. And then maybe somebody else will order, but then all of a sudden that sounds good to the other person, and now they want to change their order because what if they don't like the chicken, or maybe the way the chicken's prepared, so maybe they'll take the chicken Florentine instead of the chicken masala. And just order the chicken. It's not that serious, right? We're talking about overthinking. I think I'm overthinking. And something that trivial, we can all relate to it. And I want to draw a distinction here, okay? So I'm not advocating impulsive decision making, right? Impulsive decision making is on the other side of the spectrum. You know, thinking something out thoroughly is a very wise thing to do, especially when you're talking about things that have to do with financial decisions, buying a home, buying a car, doing things that are going to impact you in a huge way, making decisions for your life. Obviously, you want to think about these things. It takes some time to think about it. So I'm not talking about, oh, just make a decision, impulsive. But there's a difference between thinking about something and overthinking about something. And I think we all know the difference there. So let's just say there's a job offer or something like that. Now, you might have other job offers that you're looking at, right? And there are some people who like to analyze it, right? And I'm not penalizing anyone for analyzing anything, but once you've made your column and you've listed your pros and you've listed your cons and you have gone through the pros and cons and you've thought about the pros and cons, there's no reason to go over those pros and cons 7 or 8 more times. You have to make your decision based on what you've already thought about. So, why do people overthink? Why do people overthink? There are so many reasons. Let's talk about a few of those reasons. Um, some people are just flat out afraid to make a decision. They're afraid to make the wrong decision. And so what will they do? They just don't want the responsibility, right? They don't want to be said, hey, you made the wrong decision, right? And so they'll kind of back away after overthinking it and just kind of bow out, right? They're afraid to make the wrong decision. And so they sit there and overthink, overthink, overthink. So they'd rather let somebody else do it. Maybe if I sit here and overthink, somebody else will jump in and uh, and do it. Let me tell you something about that. I was reading, and unfortunately, I can't remember exactly what it was. It was just one of these articles out here. You know how sometimes they pop up on your feed, um, you know, um, online or on your phone, and it talked about relationships, men and women, and it said one of the leading things that will cause a woman to leave a man is the fact that he's so indecisive that he just won't make a decision. And I was like, wow, wow, it is that deep. The woman had to make the decision. The woman had to plan everything. The woman had to do this, and that. And it just got to be so much. Like she's just screaming, can you please just make a decision? And here's this person who might be sitting there in his mind just overthinking things and then just being afraid to make that wrong decision. So they just make no decision. But guess what? No decision is actually a decision. Think about that for a second. Another reason why someone might overthink. Why do people overthink? Fear of failure. Fear of failure. Um, what if this doesn't work out? Um, what if something goes wrong and it's not what I thought? Or maybe I didn't think about it long enough, right? And a lot of times, ladies, as we're talking about moms and living your dreams and while taking care of your family, some of us are stuck. We are stopped dead in our tracks. We are paralyzed from going forward because we are overthinking the prospect of starting a business, finishing that book you started, doing something with that movie idea that you have, uh, whatever the venture might be. You've sat there, you've written it down, and you keep thinking about it, but you don't want to step forward. You're overthinking it because there's this fear of it just falling, you falling flat, just fear of failure. But I will tell you this, you have to take a risk if you want to experience growth. You have to. And failure, if you ask any successful person how many times they failed, see, some of them, you don't know the backstory. But if you look at their life, if you look at their track record, failure upon failure upon failure upon failure, and we learn from our failures. We grow from our failures. And guess what else? You gain courage from your failures to the point when you're immune to failures and you will just continue to grow and go toward your goal. Again, that's one of the other reasons for overthinking. Let's think about another reason. Why do people overthink? There are quite a few people out there with, let's call it destructive thought patterns. Destructive thought patterns. And I could confidently say this because I was one of those people. Destructive thought patterns. It's almost like, and the thing is, for those of you who know me, you might have never known that this was going on in my head, right? You have this negative self talk sometimes. Not all the time. Some people do it all the time. But every now and then you allow like this negative thought to enter your mind, and then that negative thought kind of just takes over and nothing else can penetrate or go in because this negative thought has now become what you believe when it's simply not even true. And it could be negative self talk. Um, it could be uh, just, the way that you feel about yourself, like an insecurity, even. But that is a negative and a destructive, it's like self sabotage almost, thought pattern. Um, and there's another reason why people might have this overthinking issue. Um, and again, this is something that might require even the help of a therapist. Like if someone is depressed or suffers from anxiety or just some sort of mental health issue. And again, I don't want to ignore that because, again, that would be extreme and it would require attention, medical attention, mental health therapy. But um, you know, there there are some things that you can do to stop yourself from overthinking. And I don't know, I'm sure someone has written a book on this, but these are some of the things that I've learned along the way and that I've actually been taught. So, the first thing, once you find yourself overthinking, first you have to be aware of the fact, okay, I think I'm overthinking this, plain and simple. Okay. And then ask yourself this question. And this is something my coach said to me. Is that thought serving you? Is that thought serving you? Why are you thinking that way? And what exactly are you thinking? Like, get a hold of yourself, right? Is that thought serving you? Usually, when I ask myself that question, the answer is no. And that is my cue to move on from it, to abandon that thought and move on from it. So I would say step number one, ask yourself that question. Is that thought serving you? Something else that you can do, write down your thoughts. Write them down. I am all about journaling. As a matter of fact, the commercial in the very beginning of this show was on the devotional book Journal. And there's pages there to write. I love to journal. The book actually came about from my journal. That's how I wrote the book, from my journal. So journal your thoughts, write them down, and pull them apart. You might say, wait a second, I don't have time for all of that, right? I thought the same thing, but think about this. You're sitting there overthinking. All of that time that you're spending overthinking, you might as well get a pen and paper and write it down. It's the same time. And this exercise will actually be productive, whereas the overthinking would actually be destructive. So write it down, empty your brain, do a brain dump, and just write down what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and something else that I was taught. As you're writing down your feelings, ask yourself the question, why? And as you answer that question, why, write down your feelings and ask yourself the question, why? And then again, you write down the reason why, which again is more feelings. Ask yourself the question, why, about 5 times. I know it seems excessive, but let me tell you something. When you get to the end, you will have gotten to the root of why you are feeling the way you're feeling and why you're thinking the way you're thinking. And sometimes it will shock you because it won't even be about the situation. It'll be about something that happened either previously or something in your past. But when you keep asking yourself the question, why, and you keep investigating why you are doing this, you will get your answer and you will understand that you don't have to think that way. And that will again allow you to move forward closer to your goal. So, another thing that I think would be helpful as you're writing your thoughts down, being introspective, taking the time, because again, we talked about the time that you're spending thinking, you might as well just right? But another thing you could do is retrain your thoughts, retrain, reprogram. And this is something that I teach in my coaching program for moms, reprogramming your thoughts, like resetting. What do I mean by that? Okay, so this isn't just like a flip of the switch, right? This is something that takes time. I would even call it a discipline. And the reason I would call it that is because there are times I'm still working on it. I haven't mastered it. This is something that is going to require work, being intentional, and actually knowing and understanding what is going on, how to stop overthinking. So, one thing that I want to mention, and this is the brief overview because there's a whole biological, physiological, and mental thing that goes with this, but I'm just going to say it like this. Your thoughts affect the way you feel, and the way you feel affects how you act. Your thoughts affect the way you feel. Think about that for a minute. And the way you feel will then control the way you act or you behave. So, what I'm trying to say is it all starts with your thoughts. If you are overthinking, and if you're thinking negative thoughts, and you're thinking limiting thoughts, and you're thinking, um, you know, self talk that isn't true, if you are believing the narrative that's going on in your head that you've created that's not even true, it's going to affect your mood, how you feel, right? And if you don't feel like pursuing your goal, if you don't feel like pursuing your dream because you've just talked yourself out of it, by the way, you've just thought yourself out of it. If you don't feel like advancing in your career, right, then what do you think you're going to do? You're not going to. You will find either something else to do, whether it's stalling, procrastinating, right, or busy work, so that way you don't actually do the thing that you know you're supposed to do. And it's all because it started with your thought. So that's why overthinking is so detrimental. Again, we talked about the paralysis, how it just paralyzes you. You can scare yourself to death, talk yourself right out of something just by overthinking. Meanwhile, you could be more productive, as we talked about before, thinking about writing down why you're thinking this, why you're feeling this way, and then preventing yourself, preventing that thought that's being rehearsed over and over in your head from becoming a belief. Because once it becomes a belief, it's going to be even harder to break because then you're going to have to change your whole belief system. But I'll tell you what, it starts with your thought. So if you think you're overthinking, you're probably right. You are. But you don't have to stay there in that whole chaotic world of overthinking. You can break free from that. You can use the tips that I just gave you. And there are certain other things that you can do to help you achieve your goal, live your dream, just to be happy in your life. Nobody wants to be sitting there overthinking and causing what? Anxiety, causing uh, worry for the future, or just regret for the past. Live in the present. Be present with yourself. Be present with the people in front of you, your family, your children, your spouse, if you have one, your friends. Everybody wants you there with them. Stop living in your head. Stop living in your head. Stop overthinking. So you might be a mom who has a dream and you have done absolutely nothing with it. Maybe you have thought about it and overthought it, and there is something that you definitely want to pursue, but maybe you lack courage, or maybe you've talked yourself out of it. Well, I can help you with that. Schedule a free consultation with me at chatwithcoachangela.com. Chatwithcoachangela.com, and I can take you to the next level. We can get you out of this uh, cycle of overthinking, and we could plant some healthy thought patterns in that magnificent brain of yours and get you going so you can move forward on your goals. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Angela Anderson Show, it streams live every Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time on my Facebook profile. It's also in the mom group, Get Your Life on Track, Walk in Your Purpose. And I'm also on YouTube. So if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's at The Angela Anderson Show, at The Angela Anderson Show. Once you click on the subscribe button, it will notify you when it's about to begin, the show that is, and it'll let you know any future shows that are coming up, which again, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. For those of you who would prefer the audio, I'm also on Spotify. So when you go to Spotify, all you're going to do is click on the follow button. And once you follow, again, you'll be notified once the show airs and any upcoming shows. So I am so excited that you have joined me today on the Angela Anderson Show. It's always a pleasure. And I hope you learned something today. And if you have, make sure you share it with a friend. Until next time, take good care.